Hey there, Business for Unicorns podcast listeners. This is Mark, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome free resource on businessforunicorns.com. If you ever find yourself feeling frustrated with your training gym because you know that there are all sorts of things you could work on, but you're not really sure how to prioritize, you don't know what's the most important thing to work on or what order you should be tackling your priorities, well, now is the time to go to businessforunicorns.com, click the button, and fill out our free self-assessment. With the Ultimate Training Gym Owner Report Card, you will gain immediate clarity on just where to be focusing your attention to create more positive impact on your community, to drive more revenue and take home income, and to do it all with less stress and more peace of mind. So go to businessofunicorns.com, click the button, fill out that free self-assessment, and start building a business and life you love today.
Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Michael Keeler here today, and I'm here with a guest. I haven't had a guest on the podcast in a minute, and I'm so excited to have Curtis Christopherson. Did I pronounce Christopherson correctly?
Yeah.
Great, I nailed it. I practiced a few times this morning. And it's our first time on the podcast, so welcome to the podcast, Curtis.
Than's, Michael. Yeah, happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. Now, listen, listeners. Curtis is a man who does many things. He's been an athlete. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a dad. He's a man who juggles many balls at the same time. And so, let's just start there, Curtis. Can you just walk our listeners through how do you explain your career up till this point?
Wow. Well, I'll try to do it in about 30 seconds. I grew up, born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, and early on, I was an athlete that progressed into I became a national water polo player. So I represented Canada, traveled around the world, went to World Championships, Pan American Games, everything but the Olympics. We didn't qualify the quadrant I was on the national team with, and decided to hang up my swimsuit when I was 22 years old or 21. And I got a degree in kinesiology from Simon Fraser University with a minor in business. I left school and left sport to pursue what I thought was going to be a stepping stone in my career, to start training people. And lo and behold, 22 years later, I'm still doing that today. So I built a brand called Innovative Fitness. It's a high-end premium personal training brand. We have 15 locations across Canada, and it's more of a personalized one-on-one, two-on-one personal training business. We have about 150 employees, 15 locations, and in that time span, I've decided to venture off and do a lot of other athletic adventures, everything from marathons to Ironmans to multi-day stage races, both mountain bike and trail running. And in that short time, or long time, I guess, 20 years, I've had a family. So I have a young family. I have a 6 and 8 year old at home. And just recently, about 3 years ago, got in the technology space and built a platform called Workout, which is WRKOUT, and where we essentially provide scheduling, billing, payment processing, and virtual training features for both brick and mortar businesses, but also independents. And so I'm on both sides of the market. I have physical locations, 15 of them, and then I also have a technology platform that we work with both independents and physical location owners.
Yeah. Well done, my friend. It's like you've done this before. Yeah, it was a very, very good summary. And man, listeners, I didn't lie to you. He has his fingers in a lot of cookie jars. So good for you, Curtis. Let's just do this. Let's start with this topic I know that you have a lot to say about, which is the topic of kind of risk taking. Because clearly throughout your career, you've pivoted a lot, you've adapted a lot, you've chosen to take on whole new industries throughout your career. So talk to me a little bit about what your relationship has been to risk taking throughout all of those adventures.
Yeah, I think I was one of the few that liked taking risks early on in life. I'll give you an example. When I was 18 years old, I had full ride scholarships for both academics and athletics. And because of that, I got my school paid for. But because I also worked full time, what I did is I could qualify for student loans. So at 18 years old, I took my first largest risk, I would say, and I put a down payment on a house through a student loan, owned my first house when I was 18, and by the time I was 21, I had owned three. And so, I definitely, I look at my wife and other people around me, definitely risk adverse, and I would say I'm a little bit on the opposite. After owning three houses when I was 21, finished off my school, like I mentioned. At 22, I decided to sell everything. That was almost a risk in itself. Selling, when you're a homeowner and
Yeah, for sure.
everything. And I took a $450,000 loan and decided to start my career when I opened up my first location. And so, when you're 22 years old, taking on debt of $450,000, like that's a significant amount of money. And
It's not a joke.
no,
Yeah.
and I think you build up tolerance to taking risk. I had a decent level of success early on. I took that debt on when I was 22, and I paid it off in 3.5 years. And then it made me want to take on more risk because I saw the reward of taking that risk. And so all my life and all my career, I've been open to taking risks, whether it's athletically, whether it's in business, or whether it's just how I challenge my kids to explore what opportunity exists, and I'm a big fan of it. And yeah, so it definitely has been probably a common thread in my career path, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, taking on that much debt at such a young age, you had to have a lot of confidence in yourself,
Yeah.
right? To be able to know that you could handle that. That's huge. Well, one of the things I see is that, and tell me if this has been true for you, is that a lot of folks early on in the career, they're cool taking risks because they don't have a lot to lose. And as you gain more momentum and you gain more recognition, as you gain more wealth, as you gain maybe more comfort in your life, right? I see a lot of folks who get more risk adverse over time. Has that been your experience at all?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I think we take risks when we need to take risks. So it's early on, I think, whether you're classified as young and dumb and you're willing to take more risk because you have less to lose. Like I look back at 22 and I remember saying it like, what's worst case scenario? I lose and I fail and I'm $450,000 in debt and I find a way to pay it off in the remaining years of my lifetime or my career. And the older you get, you want to conserve everything you've built up, whether that's reputation all the way to the wealth that you've accumulated. So I definitely think on one side, being a little more risk adverse definitely occurs, but I think you get more strategic. You get strategic in terms of the risks you take. I think they're a little more calculated. I think you're a little more exposed to experience and experiences that shape and allow you to decide what you want to take risks on. But I think also the level of risk, I know from my personal experience, I've taken on more risk from a dollar figure. It's more calculated, but I think I'm willing to take a larger risk because I know that, there's just another zero, that's attached to things. And it's relatively the same amount of risk. It's just a different type of risk, so.
Different scale. Yeah, different scale of it. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think another reason I see people who, think big but don't really act big, right, is because maybe they've done that a few times and got burned. So talk to me a little bit about how, resilience plays a role in this for you. I mean, and maybe even if you have an example of a time when you swung big and missed big, how do you rebound from that? Because it can be devastating, not just financial, but just even reputational risk of, I put myself on the line, put myself out there. It did not work out, so I should not do that again. That's often the pattern I hear. So how do you think about rebounding from the risks you take that don't work out?
Yeah, and I've had my fair share, that's for sure. It's it's definitely not been a path of perfection, that's for sure. I found that early on in my career, I had a level of success quite early, as I mentioned, and things progress and you accumulate wealth and you feel like you're resilient or confident enough to take more risk. And I think some of the mistakes I made early on, I'd say in my late 20s, is I would venture off and do things that wasn't true to my core competency or my core values. Like I would take risk and invest in things that I knew nothing about, like absolutely nothing about. And I felt like, business is business and I'm confident and competent and I've had a level of success. So, venturing off and investing in businesses that I knew nothing about or had no control over, and I lost. And I look back and I go, did I have full confidence around, the investment opportunity? No. Did I have full control of the opportunity and the end result? No. Was there other, things or factors that played into the outcome of that business venture? Yes. And so, looking back, I remember, looking at my wife and I said, I don't think I'll do that again. Like, unless I'm, I have a level of confidence or understanding of the business, number one. Number two, if I have a level of control of the outcome, I think it's one thing to, write a check and stroke a check and, off you go. But if I can't participate in some sort of way, whether that's from an advisory perspective, a confidence perspective, leaning on my experience or my contacts or relationships, industry experience, I don't know if I would do that again. And if not, I'd definitely take baby steps. So, there's definitely things I've learned. And I think, that's provided a level of resilience because, when you lose, it's hard, right? Like, it's hard on the ego, it's hard on the pocketbook, it's hard on a lot of things. And then you pick yourself back up and you realize that, you only have a level of control of what you can control. And I definitely don't mind taking risk on myself. That's for sure. So.
Yeah. Well said, Curtis. I think it's even clear from listening to you reflect on that experience that you are really good at switching really quickly from like an attitude of, oh crap, I failed at this, an attitude of self-pity or self-degradation. You immediately went into, what am I learning from this? You immediately had a learning orientation to the experience of like, okay, let me just walk through. What decisions did I make? Which ones would I make again? What worked? What didn't work? What can I carry forward? Right? And the fact that you are so good at learning in a moment of being knocked down, I think is a huge asset to entrepreneurs. And clearly you've had some real experience there. So I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners, right? Is the faster you can find that learning orientation to a failure, the faster you can pick back up, gather those lessons, put them in your bag, and keep moving forward. So I think that's a great example for everyone. Yeah. Let's switch gears, because I want to move to something really tactical, which is clearly you have a lot of locations of your physical gym, and so many of our listeners own brick and mortar fitness studios. So, and one of the things that many of them struggle to do is to scale to multiple locations. One location can be hard enough, especially if it's a big one. And trying to streamline your systems and your processes and your staffing to scale to multiple locations is tough. So, I'm sure there's a lot. We could spend a whole hour talking about this. But in a nutshell, what are some of the most important things looking back at when you've scaled, looking back at scaling your locations? What are some most important things you did right?
It's probably what I did wrong and learn from them. But
Feel free to add a little both if that's helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I think this industry, the reality is that we set out to have an impact, and hopefully, most people and most listeners that are listening to this, if you're in the industry, you've gone out and you have some sort of passion, desire, or a level of interest to have a positive impact on, either individuals or, in society in general from a health and wellness perspective. And, we go out and we, go and start and build our business, starting with ourselves. We start training people, and we realize that, number one, it's easy to control what we can control. And then when you start scaling, and you own one of your own brick and mortar locations, then you got to surround yourself with solid, qualified individuals, like a team of people that can, deliver the same level of service that you do, and hopefully have the same level of heart or interest or passion as you do. And when you first start out in one location, I think it's quite manageable, but venturing off to a second, third, fourth location can make it very, very difficult. Like, if you're not there every single day, you can't, manage all the processes. You can't, it's really less about yourself and it's more about the brand and the business. And so I think one of the key things that we did was we processed, we put a lot of process around a personal service business, like everything from, how you pick up the phone, how you welcome guests, how you service them, everything from a customer service perspective all the way to the training perspective. And I think a lot of people in this industry were so heavily focused on the training content and the quality of the programming and really the service from a training level, and not about the customer service, the customer journey, the experience, let alone the back end items, like whether it's operations, marketing, finance, and the structure of actually running a strong business. And so I think we put a lot of process into that. So that's number one. And I think the other side of it is we recognized early on that if we made it about ourselves, we would never win. Like, it's about servant leadership. And our leadership is actually, we're here to serve our teammates, not just our customers, but our teammates. And when we make them the stars, and we make it about the brand and about the trainers that we surround ourselves with, then we're able to grow. And when we made it about ourselves, and our brand and our personal brand and our personal impact, that's when we failed. So, and every single time, we shift the focus on ourselves, whether it's, growth strategies, whether it's opportunity, whether it's about, even just presence, like from a marketing perspective, and not about the team. That's when we get, we have speed bumps and hiccups. So, I think if I can make any recommendation, not only develop the systems and the processes to scale a business appropriately, but, make sure that we keep our egos in check and really go about it, about servant leadership, and serve your teammates, not just your customers, serve your teammates, and be there for them, and make it about them and the team of and the tribe of people that you've surrounded yourself with. I think that's when you can truly scale a business in this industry.
Yeah. Well said, Curtis. I think that the emphasis on team here, I think, is really clear, because the very first thing you said is to get ready to scale, you got to surround yourself with a team of people who has similar values, similar passion, similar vision, and can help bring all these skills you need to the scaling process. So that was great. The second thing I heard there was creating systems and SOPs that are scalable. So really writing down not just the fitness part of the content, but the whole client experience, really documenting the whole client journey. And I love that you were specific enough that said, how we pick up the phone, how we welcome and greet people. All of those things need to be dialed in so people can be properly trained and managed to perform at the level you need them to be, specifically because you can't be at all the locations all the time, right? Yeah. So that's huge. And then your last point there about really investing in the team is huge, like decentering yourself as a founder or owner or executive, right? And centering the people who are on the ground every day doing the work, building the relationships. I mean, you're speaking my language, my friend. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to add something.
Yeah, I mean, like we've systemized, as an example. I'll give you one, relative and I guess important example in our business. The amount of time and attention we put into our personal development of our teammates and our trainers is of top priority. Like it's one of I'd say probably the biggest differentiator in the industry. A lot of, like I said, a lot of business owners in this industry spend a lot of time around, developing people and their trainers around programming and technical, background and experience, and, service delivery from a training perspective. We spend a lot of time on the personal development and growth of all of our trainers and teammates. And so, as an example, we have a 24-week partner program that we've developed that every one of our managers takes every single one of our teammates from the moment that they're hired for the next 24 weeks, and they sit down with them for an hour one-on-one meeting with every one of our employees, every one of our teammates, sits down with their managers, and goes through a 24-week partner program. And that partner program is highly focused on personal growth and development, whether it's reading books such as The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The 5 Love Languages, a book called Question Behind the Question, whether it's that development all the way to how to actually build a personal plan for the year, an annual personal plan, or writing their personal story. So every single one of our employees in the first 3 months of their employment writes their own personal biography. Because we believe when someone actually takes the time from a self-reflection perspective and really learns about who they are and why they are who they are, it unlocks some magical things. Not only does it teach them about themselves, what makes them click or tick, what strengths they have, what weaknesses they have, why they are who they are, what motivates them, but it also identifies things that hold them back. And when they can self-identify those things, it's a lot easier to coach them. And so we spend a lot of time on our personal development of our people, and that's been probably the biggest differentiator in our business. And so even the processes around the personal development and growth strategy around our people is documented. And so it's that gives you an example of what we've done and the focus we've had on not only our people but the processes in our business.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Curtis. I mean, you're speaking my language. Our podcast listeners will know that one of my favorite topics is people development. and so the fact that you are so invested in that, I think you're absolutely right. It's got to be a unique value proposition for the company as a whole, driving forward. So, and listeners, I hope you were taking notes, because there's a lot of great tactical examples of ways to onboard people in the first 24 weeks. So those are great examples. I would love to just go back a few steps from there, because finding staff members who are going to be interested in a 24-week journey like that, who are going to be interested in continuing to develop throughout their work, finding people with that kind of mentality and attitude is a challenge. Because I imagine from time to time you get people who you take through that onboarding process and it's not their jam. They don't want to write a bio about themselves. So just taking a few steps back, how do you find people who are the right fit for that kind of culture?
Yeah, a lot of our teammates come from referrals. So, we believe that, great people know other great people, whether it's through their academic journey or athletic journey. They played on teams together. They went to school together. So there is a percentage of people that come to our business because of a referral, because they know someone that's already working in our business. And if they share very similar values, which usually friendships do, that's not a problem. That's number one. Number two, I think we're pretty open and honest. Like, we're known in the industry for the time, attention we put towards personal development and growth. And so if you're coming to Innovative Fitness, or Workout Now, and you know a little bit about us, you would know that we spend a lot of time around that. And so, probably there's a percentage of people that would never step foot in our doors or apply to be part of our business because they know that. And so, and we're open and upfront right from the interview process. From the moment that you walk in the door to the moment that you have your first interview, we're open and honest with how we challenge people to go outside their comfort zone, what the expectation is and what the reality is of a life, and a career with our companies. And so, I think the more open and honest we are right from the get-go, the more, it's a filtering process, and not everybody makes it through the interview process, and they self-select out. We're so open and honest that there's a self-selection process that happens and occurs both in the interview and the onboarding process, that they decide this is not for them. And we'd rather have that during that time versus, 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months in.
Yeah, for sure. Curtis, can you just talk a little bit about that interview process? So how are you weaving this information about your culture into the process?
Yeah, so we ask questions like, what's your 5 biggest strengths? What's your 5 biggest weaknesses? We try to identify if they've done a level of self-reflection. We ask people what their biggest challenge in life has been to date, and we determine if they're willing to, really open up the kimono and share some deep, vulnerable things. It might not be business challenge, it might be personal challenges, what they faced, and we try to encourage a lot of openness in our interview process. And it's not to say that if you're not open and vulnerable that we're not going to hire you, but I think that's an example of some of the questions that we ask in your interview process. I think we also, as leaders, the people that are conducting the interviews share their own personal examples. So we make it comfortable for people to really be open with us, and so that's an example. And then we talk about the expectation that there is in our industry, in our businesses. Like, we're open about the expectation around work hours, around commitment, around what the life at working for one of our companies is like. And I think that's super important, because the interview process and the interview journey is equally about the interviewee as it is the interviewer. Like, it's for us, we say, hey, you know what, at the end of the day, we want to learn about you, but we want you to learn about us too. Because at the end of the day, it's a symbiotic relationship. And so you might be a great fit. We might think that you're a great fit for us, But if we're not a great fit for you, we want you to know that. And so we share about our culture, our value system, the expectations, and what it is like to work in any of our businesses. Because if they have a good understanding going in, then once again they can make the decision as well. So
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I just really want to applaud Curtis that you and your team are really thinking about the interview process like a two-way dialogue, right? All too often people don't. They think about it like a one-way street. You're going to come in and we're going to grill you like some sort of inquisition, some sort of what's it called? Interrogation, right? It's like, and that's not what this is, right? It's more like a first date, right? We want to be like appropriately awkward and be vulnerable when possible and get to know each other well enough to say, do we actually want to go on a second date, right? I mean, that's probably a better analogy. And so I'm so grateful that you and your team think of it like that, because I think the industry needs more of that approach. Let's switch gears. I know we only have maybe 5 or so minutes left, and I want to ask you a little bit about the future, right? Because I know you're someone who has a foot in both brick and mortar facilities, and you're now in the tech space as well. And tech is becoming more and more important part of people's health and wellness experience in life these days. So I'll just kind of put you on the spot and ask you to look into your crystal ball and just say, what do you see are the changes coming? I'll start short term, in the next year or so, as many places, including where you are still coming out of COVID. We're still, coming out in many places, crawling our way back from being, knocked down from COVID. So what do you see, what changes from the last 2 years have we made that you think are going to stick in the next year? And then I'm going to ask you maybe about more long-term, but what are your changes coming out of COVID that you see, I think are going to stick either for tech or for brick and mortar studios?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we know that has stuck or has had a level of adoption is digital wellness and digital fitness. It got obviously accelerated through COVID and through lockdowns, but I think what it did is it provided the consumer awareness around the convenience of being accountable or staying consistent with their fitness. When you looked at pre-COVID, especially in our space, that is the highly one-on-one personal training space, that people come to us for the accountability, not only for the personalization, not only for the coaching, but more than anything, the accountability. And usually our consumers and customers, when they left the physical location, they didn't do anything. They would come to us 3 times a week, and then, the other 4 days a week, or when they were traveling for corporate travel or vacation travel, their health journey stopped. And so I think COVID accelerated the understanding that you could stay connected to your health journey no matter where you were, whether you're on the road for vacation, corporate travel, as I mentioned, and or just the other 4 or 5 days a week that you're at home. And I think that's here to stay. I think, when we look at the acceleration of digital fitness or connected fitness, whether it's through tech-enabled hardware, like whether it was bikes or stair mills or other businesses and brands that had tech-enabled hardware, I think it's going to be tough for them to, whether it's supply chain issues, whether it's just a flooded market, whether, essentially the adoption, has peaked and now, there's not a lot of consumers that are buying, tech-enabled hardware anymore. I think that's going to be tough, but for the personal training businesses and owners out there, I think connected fitness from a digital virtual training is here to stay. Now, not at the level of in the midst of COVID, but I think there is a level of connection. The consumer wants to stay connected to their health journey in the short term and in the long term. So I think that's one thing that's here to stay for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll plus one that as well. I mean, we've definitely seen that. Even our experience at Mark Fisher Fitness is that, while we don't see people connecting with us online in the same numbers, they've stuck around in much greater numbers than we ever would have anticipated. And I think so much of what you said has been our experience as well. Is that they now understand that there can be a connection to the gym even when you're not there. There could be connection to that community, to that accountability, even when you're not in those 4 walls. So it's really just a continuation. It's an expansion of the reach that we have, that we're not just getting them for an hour at a time. We can stay connected for much longer, even if not to a specific trainer, to a community, All right. And I think, it's something that I think we're seeing a lot of as well. But about longer term, I mean, there's a lot of talk these days about tech really taking over. There's some people who think that over the next, 10 years, we're going to see boutique studios really struggle in a way that, the last 10 years has really been a boom for boutique fitness. And so some people are worried that we think that, that's going to come to an end. It's going to be really tough because everyone's going to be at home with their tech-enabled hardware and their apps and their virtual trainers on mirrors and screens and treadmills and all those things. I'm not a doomsdayer in that way. I don't think it's going to make that big of a pivot, but I'm curious, if you look into your crystal ball, 10 years out, what do you see?
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on that brick and mortar is here to stay, and boutique fitness will continue to rise.
Yeah.
I think you have trends that showcase that personalized fitness or wellness is on the rise, and that's not going away. Combine that with a sense of community. I think in our tech-enabled lives, whether that's at work or in other aspects of our life, I think people and human beings really vie for community, and they want to be around humans and individuals and interactions and experiences. I think the rise of experiences is going to continue to grow, whether that's destination fitness, like travel fitness, all the way to boutique fitness. That's going to get continue to get competitive for sure. I think personalization is going to be quickly growing with whether it's artificial intelligence all the way to any type of understanding around overall longevity and wellness. I think that's going to be a deep dive area or topic that's going to continue to grow. The more science that we put behind it, I think we're getting a better understanding of what really longevity is and how we can influence it. I think omni-channel fitness, I think for all the brick and mortar owners, I think we have to pay attention on how we can drive revenue outside of our physical locations, whether it's through travel fitness and creating community around that, like what we call destination fitness, all the way to digital fitness. How do we keep our consumers connected to their health journey outside of your own physical locations? I think that's super important. And then I think the other one that we haven't really touched on is just like we have to give the consumer and the customer options around flexibility, like accessing fitness wherever, whenever. I think we have to do the same thing for our employees. I think there's, if you look at trends, there's a rise of the creator economy. I think that's not going away. I think we need to give optionality for our employees and our trainers. Whether they're the flexibility of not only providing and making income while providing services in the physical locations, but also how are they going to make money as mini entrepreneurs when they're sleeping? Like how do we actually unlock earning potential? Because our industry has traditionally screwed that up. Like we hire talent, we cap them on their earning potential. They can only make money when they're delivering services in a synchronous way. How can they make money asynchronously? And how can we provide those options and opportunities for them? If not, I think we're going to continually lose great people to be mini entrepreneurs and go out and do it on their own. And they're going to find, whether becoming an online coach or find different ways of making money, affiliate marketing, represent brands, and so I think we have to find ways to really unlock earning potential outside of just delivering, fitness services. I think that's super important. So.
Yeah. Great list, Curtis. I think that's great. I love that you brought in that last one because I couldn't agree more. I think it's huge. Do you know anyone that's doing that well yet? Unlocking income potential for trainers?
I think there's a lot of, businesses. There's like a business called Future that hires coaches to do online coaching. I think, they're unlocking a level of further income potential or revenue potential. But, to be honest, I don't think so. And that's what we're doing at Workout. I mean, Workout's designed, we built that platform to not only give the foundational tools for scheduling, billing, payment processing, virtual training as a feature set, but the future of Workout is actually unlocking further income streams. And we do that in two ways. Number one, we built a platform for both the independent, but also brick and mortar businesses, because the technology that brick and mortar has whether it's the mind bodies, the easy facilities, the the basic tools to run your business, they don't unlock future revenue potential. They don't unlock. They don't give. Not only do they make it hard to connect to the consumer outside the physical locations, they make it hard for trainers to make more money. And when we're servants for our teammates and our trainers, when we can help them make more money, we're going to win long term. And so that's what we're doing at Workout. We're creating a platform that is integrated to brick and mortar. It gives brick and mortar business owners opportunity to make more money, but more than anything, it allows them to focus their attention to their trainers and allow them to make more money, which in turn helps them, the brick and mortar, make more money. So that's our goal. That's where we're bullish on that, and we believe in two things. Number one, that the omni-channel experience has to be there for the consumer. I think the consumer is dying for it and looking for it, and they need to stay connected to their health journey, whether it's through their trainer or their brick and mortar experience. Number one, and number two, we have to find ways to unlock income potential and earning potential for our trainers, because they can't have a sustainable career path if they're only making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. It's not sustainable. So
yeah. Well, you're doing great work there, my friend. I think it's so needed, and I think there's so many people, I'm sure, listening to this podcast, nodding their head, being like, "Yep, that's exactly it." Yes, we really need to keep people longer and grow the business by leveraging the brilliant relationships our trainers are creating with our clients, and how to make that easier, not just in the building, but when they're out of the building. So, bravo to you. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Sorry, I went over our time by a few minutes, but thanks for hanging in there. We could probably have another whole hour of conversation with the questions I have left over. So we'll have to have you back, Curtis. But thanks for doing this. How do our listeners find more about you and your businesses online?
Yeah, our brick and mortar business is called Innovative Fitness. So you can look up innovativefitness.com. Our digital platform, workout, WRKOUT.com. And I'm easily accessible on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. All those platforms you can find me on and super active on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending the time today to share your knowledge, your expertise, your wisdom. Thanks for breaking out your crystal ball and giving us a view of the future. I mean, this was really a conversation where we covered a lot of ground. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'm excited to have you back again someday. So thank you, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you loved today's podcast, and forgive me, I want to remind you one more time, if you haven't already done so, head over to businessofunicorns.com, click the button, and get your free self-assessment, the ultimate training gym owner report card. I promise you, you're going to want to dig into this resource and get the support you need, finding crystal clarity on exactly where you need to be focusing to create a life and a business you love.